quite surprising and one is awed is that if there's an issue, there's always people that come forward to address it. When there was the earthquake in Japan and the Fukushima tragedy, within 2 weeks there was a working group of Rx-360 trying to think through the implications to the supply chain. And within a week of that, FDA joined the group to kind of help things through. So if anybody out there has an issue that they believe should be discussed because people would benefit from it, we'll start the working group tomorrow. We'll probably get the lawyer to make sure we're doing the right thing, you know, because there's lots of things we cannot talk about, but we'll do it.
Can I just add, it was quite interesting. Martin and I were given something like 1 hour's notice, FDA want to talk to you. I remember I was driving home and had to quickly get home to take the call. So they were so keen to listen to industry because everyone was struggling with the same issue. But I really do believe that we helped to modify their thinking to make sure that whatever came out that was reasonable and measured and not too inoperable for us as industry. So I think that was an exciting day, wasn't it, Martin?
So I don't know if anybody on the panel wants to add something else on supply chain security or what we do beyond audits.
Yeah, I think the key, if you go back, like Brian said, to the original mission, is to share information. And audit is just one piece of information we share. We share our best practices. We share new technologies that might help prevent, detect, or disrupt the criminals in the supply chain. If someone develops an analytical method that can detect for an adulterant, we share that with our members. So we share information. And like Lynn says, we try to validate the information. But we get phone calls now from regulators around the world and say, hey, tomorrow this is going to be made public. We want you to be able to get this out to your members right after it becomes public. So the regulators are calling us and providing us with the information. I don't know if anybody in the room is from J&J, but the head of quality from J&J came up to me one day and said, I don't know how you guys do this, but when something new comes out, you take it, you digest it, you create a PowerPoint slide deck, and it's on my desk before my own people can do the J&J analysis. So it's not only the information, but it's the quickness and the speed of the information. Because really, if we're trying to get the bad people out of the supply chain, right, speed is of the essence, right? The more time they have to do their things, right, the more damage they can do.
Just to add a comment, I think from a procurement standpoint, the information that's available, it's something that we do make use of in our organization. So, you know, I don't know if people understand that they can go and get the push of the alerts and some of the information from the website coming to your organization. You know, we didn't start having it just go out and explaining to people that was the case, but it's evolved over time that we would get it into the organization, it would be shared throughout. And I think in some instances, looking at the information that's out there from Rx-360, it helps to validate and augment what we are doing with that analysis internally. So it helps perhaps in some instances to be directional, because the example of what occurred in Japan is, you know, it's very appropriate. There was a lot of time and energy by all the people in the room, all the companies in the room, spent focusing on that activity, and you want to make the right decision. You don't want to take the wrong step when there's new variables coming up every hour and every day for the first few weeks of that. So that's been a real important standpoint from a procurement standpoint, and that's a really nice thing that your company can do to expose your procurement organizations to the benefits and the information that's offered from Rx-360.
Yeah, and the other thing about that working group, which I thought was very interesting, was very cross-functional. Right? Had lots of people from all different walks of life and all different parts of the world. But we actually had a nuclear engineer on the team giving guidance about the kind of radiation that can be emitted from a nuclear reactor and what the dangers, how far and they were validating the stuff that was coming out of Japan that was accurate or not. So it's amazing when you pull large organizations together, the synergy that can happen.
Yeah, if you if you want to see the work that that team did on Japan, if you go out to the website, it's a tremendous amount of information about, we all had radiation experts from our companies, and we put together a library. I learned so much, through that tragic event. It's tremendous the amount of information that's out there on, radiation threats. The group was monitoring regulatory activity around the world. It was a truly, value-added activity for everyone in the supply chain. I wanted to make another comment about, this concept of signal detection, which is another, I think, value stream of Rx-360. So in Pfizer, like in ADA, our procurement organization actually owns a process that we call signal detection. So if there is a shortage or if there is a potential for an issue to occur, economic adulteration to occur as a result of a shortage, that actually gets fed into the signal detection process that our procurement organization owns. And as Martin indicated, we get a lot of leads from information coming from Rx-360 with the speed that the organization is able to get information on. So.
If anybody wants to be a little bit, understand specifically what signal detection implies, you need only realize that about 6 months before people started dying in America, the heparin price had trebled in China. That's a signal. And the heparin issue, you had endless people finger pointing to quality. But I think purchasing had the signal long before. So this is what we're trying to do, to share this kind of data. Are there any questions from anybody or anybody with?
This is directed to the procurement professionals. So Rx-360 is about 3 years old, so it's still a little bit of a toddler. How significant is Rx-360 as you evaluate your vendors now? And how significant do you expect it to be with the toddlers in first grade 3 years from now?
I'll start with that. Right now we are using it, I'd say at a low level. We're not going to, probably use an Rx-360 audit for our number one supplier, for our number one item, things like that. There's going to be things that we're going to want to still do internally, but we are, planning to use it more, especially for some non-key items, things like that.
Yeah, actually, the level of involvement of ourselves into the Rx program is definitely there. And when I, honestly, when I look back into my Rx experience, I can say that somewhere I got messages from somebody I didn't really know, but it always had the title Rx. And there were valuable information transferred to me, and I was wondering where does it come from. So I investigated a little bit, and here I am. So there is something which got started, and I think more and more people join in. And I can say for procurement in Teva, we are actively using it. We start to more and more actively use it. It's not there where it could be, but it's increasing.
I think it echoes for Abbott. We certainly we're predominantly using the joint audits and the additional information that's out there. I think it's going to continue to grow as we look at what are the strategies that we want to take and what are the best areas, similar to Kim's comments, what are the best areas to utilize this. And actually, we're all learning. So as I listen to some of the panel comments, that thought of using it just to validate these stages of a project, that yes, we don't have to get somebody out there from our company with their eyes on it. We could get some basic pre-work information. It's not going to prevent us from needing to go out and wanting to audit, but it can help the efficiency of that process. I think that's a direction that I can see it growing for us in the future.
Any other questions?
I have one question to the suppliers, the Rx suppliers. So we are the working group considering how to strengthen the joint audit. And one crucial point is the acceptance of the manufacturing side to be audited by Rx. So you are the representatives of your companies in these Rx, but I know you are sometimes complex organizations. So can you tell us something about your experience to convince your individual manufacturing sites to accept an Rx audit? What concerns are there, and what is your concept to convince your own site and your organization to accept the audit? Any supplier of that?
It may surprise you that we also supply APIs as sort of a third-party supplier. And I'll just give our experience. When we were doing the pilot program, where we tested the audits, the head of quality for one of our sites rang me up and said, "Lynn, we'd love to be part of this pilot. Please, can we arrange that?" So we arranged it. That one of the GSK sites was part of the pilot. And their rationale was that because they supply many third-party companies, they were being asked to do many audits and host many audits rather, and therefore they really wanted to have an audit in the database that they could then refer future customers to, that it was available. I think if you're confident in your capabilities and the standards that you set in your own sites, then probably not too much to worry about. But that was a genuine example from our company. And also, I obviously did some due diligence after the fact and spoke to them to say, so how was it? What did you think? And they were really impressed with the standard of the auditors that went into the site. And would love to see more people sort of use that audit report rather than go and do it again.
But I know where you're getting at. In other words, Rx-360, when we schedule audits, we do get pushback. That some suppliers will say, "Come on, we're up to here with audits." No, who are you anyway? So I think my answer is you do not build Rome in a day. You know, Rx-360 is a huge thing. It's going to be huge. So you're not going to expect a revolution in 6 months. 16 months would be optimistic. So it'll take time, but I'll give you a good story, if you will. We have a customer that has stuff made at Hofja, and it's public. I can talk about it. This is a company that makes a modified cyclodextrin that's an excipient called Captisol, and they have endless customers, mostly in development. But they have lots of customers that are actually members of Rx-360. And we get at least 6 audits a year for this blooming excipient that doesn't even have to go into regulatory blah, blah, blah. So we kind of convince the client to become a member. And it will trigger an audit. And I think everybody will be much happier. Because the cost of the audit is obviously that those 2 days where, you know, they get total attention. But then you have the CAPAs. You know, 6 times a CAPA opportunity is far more expensive than a gold standard grade audit by experienced, competent people that won't ask for unreasonable CAPAs, but will probably teach you stuff. So this is our sense. Maybe Patty has some.
At least I would like, even though I'm for procurement and Kim mentioned the potential savings before, I would like to come with another point which also creates savings. You mentioned the cost of an audit for the company who is getting audited. Now it's not only that the company who is going for an audit can save money, it's also the one who gets the auditors saves money by not getting 10 or 20 but only 1. And saying it from a purchasing point of view, We are also contacting companies we want to audit, and we get pushbacks because they consider our quantities for specific products too small. Now, Teva is not that big. There might be much bigger companies who don't have that problem. But you see, I'm saying that with a smile. Of course, everybody of us has these problems, I'm sure. And we can convince for sure, even with easy words, such suppliers from the benefit, the huge benefit it has for all of us, for the whole community.
Yeah, obviously there is still some reluctance from mid-sized and small companies to get a member, and we heard about the savings. Maybe the question of these companies is whether audit reports taken from the Rx-360 database compared to audits you have done yourself is not that accepted by international authorities. Maybe the pharmaceutical manufacturers have some experience regarding the acceptance from authorities.
I'll do Europe, then Martin can do the US. Since being involved in Rx-360, I've spent a lot of time personally meeting with regulators. So I've been to the Inspectors Working Party where the regulators from all of the European authorities are present in London and presented and talked them through the proposals. They are very comfortable with it. So Europe recognises third-party audits as being acceptable, but they will always have a but they will challenge the effectiveness of that during inspection. So they've seen, and I've spoken with Jacques Morinas, that many of you will know from the French authorities, and also with David Coburn in Europe, and they are comfortable with what they see. They've seen the standards, we've shared the sort of templates of the audit reports. Message I would have always is you need to bring it into your own quality management system. You can't just pick from the shelf the Rx-360 audit because it does not contain a decision about whether that supplier is okay or not okay. So there's something that each company needs to do. We've provided templates and examples of what that might look like just to help members. World Health Organization are also comfortable with it. And so there is general acceptance. I'll pass to Martin because I know he's probably had many discussions with FDA on it.
So everything you said, I would agree, is the same thing in the US, right? It's the product. Will the product withstand the rigor? But independent of that, and then they'll do that challenge if it's your own audit or somebody else's. Does that product withstand the rigor? But the FDA has said publicly and in writing on many occasions that they will accept third-party audits, and specifically Rx-360 audits. So you can search FDA Rx-360 on the internet and presentations, speeches. Most recently, Deb Otter went to Brazil for FDLI, and in her speech endorsed Rx-360, and that's out on the LinkedIn too. So the FDA is fully supportive. Like I say, they are actually part of the organization, which is, I know no other organization with an FDA actively participates as much as they do with Rx-360. So we're very comfortable with that. We have, as companies come on board, training classes, how to present the Rx-360 audits to auditors, the processes we use. And so I'm very comfortable that the audits will be accepted. Now, will some inspectors somewhere in the world challenge it and have a personal opinion? We see that every day, right? With inspectors not all on the same page all around the world. But I think the management of the regulatory agencies fully support this. And because they know it's happening. I think I saw a study done by the QP Association in Europe that instead of all the legislation around the world passes about supply chain integrity, they estimate that there will be a required 100,000 audits of the supply chain a year. every company, every supplier, 100, there's no way the system can handle that.
There was another question.
Thank you for choosing and it's not really one question, it's like 3 or 4. If not allowed to do them all together, just tell me. First of all, you've spoken about pharmaceutical manufacturers, you've spoken about first-tier suppliers, like for instance ourselves. What about, how down can we go in terms of our supplier base? Meaning, I'm a supplier within Rx terms. So what do I need to do as a supplier of a supplier of a supplier to apply? And are there any kind of restrictions to apply? Then there's also this question of mindset and like motivation, to motivate people to adhere to this kind of organization. I can really see the benefits, you are mentioning it, but then in real life, if I go to like a petrochemical and I will tell them, guys, I would like you to adhere, would they be accepted first? Second, what's in need for them? Would they immediately recognize all these benefits that I can really recognize? Would that be so easy? And I hope this is the last one. Sorry. Also, I've been hearing for US, I've been hearing for Europe. What about other countries? What about Asian countries? What about Latin America? What about, I don't know, Africa, maybe not so many suppliers or so. Have you considered them? Do you have any kind of members that are not within Europe or US?
Okay, so let's start with the easy ones.
Sorry.
I think we are arms wide open. We accept anyone that wants to be part. We have no home address. That's crucial that we put across. We have one member from India, that's Haikal. We have Takeda from Japan. Sumitomo keeps saying the paperwork is, art. And we have, Sumitomo says the paperwork is in the mail. So, the more the merrier. We'd love to embrace. For suppliers, the cost is not huge. We're talking $6,000 a year to join for a supplier. Now, the questions that are harder is the motivation piece. And you're absolutely right that if you have a particular refinery that makes several thousand tons of acetone an hour or a day, and the pharma is a small chunk, maybe they're not going to do the beautiful paperwork we want. But maybe that's precisely the kind of topic a purchasing working group should be addressing. The other nightmare I think we all have is plastic bags. Buying good quality plastic bags. Does anybody have a good plastic bag supplier? Put his hand in the air, because we should buy shares. Because we should all buy from them. But I don't know, what are the purchasing thing? You have the same issues.
Well, I think, to the point of the working group, I think that is the, so you're opening this up to have everybody have a voice and be part of it. And I think if you're at the cusp of, if you open up some additional working groups, then it gives the ability to not only bring, in this case, some of the procurement people to the table, but from a supplier perspective as well. And we can talk about whether it be those categories of the plastic bags or the solvents. You may choose that that's really what would be interesting to have some discussion around. There might also just be, a whole host of other things that come up as opportunities, sanctioned by the lawyers, of course, what can and cannot be talked about. So I think that it is a definite benefit, and it's definitely an opportunity. And I think directionally it sounds like the additional working groups are the way that you're looking to go. I think you get a lot of participation, and that would also, I think, engender even more of those companies globally to view it as a way that they could participate and learn more about Rx-360 and understand it's not just about FDA, it's not just about EMEA, there's quality and quality applies worldwide.
I just want to talk a little bit about the lawyers. I know I like to be confrontational and be thought-provoking. So where's Mary? She might have running, grab the mic from my hand. That's Mary's one of our key lawyers. When we started Rx-360, that was our biggest hurdle, was getting internal counsel to say that this was okay at each company. And it was so paradigm changing that most pharma companies said, no, we could never do anything like this. And we had outside counsel through Drinker Biddle Reed, who was our secretariat, and did a great job, helped us through that process. But it is amazing the barriers that we put in front of ourselves and we just accept them. So other industries have been doing Rx-360 of their own for decades, right? The petrochemical, the aviation, the bakery, the apparel, they all have their version of Rx-360. And somehow, none of them ever went to Japan. But we went one step further. We actually have the United States Department of Justice opinion that says, based on what we're doing in Rx-360 and the application that we provided them in our bylaws, that we have a safe harbor where we can act. So we actually now have a safe harbor from the government that says, if you do these things, we're not going to go after you for any antitrust violations. So I think that's really good, and the lawyers make sure that we don't deviate from that plan. But I talk to other industries all the time, and it's amazing how competitors in other industries are sharing inventories of raw materials. I would think all of our lawyers would probably say we can't do that. How does other industries share inventory of raw materials? So when you say, yeah, I'm only this much, yeah, I'm this much, you're this much, you're that much, together we can maybe buy one lot a year. Maybe that's more appealing to the supplier to sell one lot, knowing that they're going to be able to sell it to one set of higher standards.